And we're back with Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff, the top Democrat of the House Intelligence Committee. Congressman, the New York Times has just now reported that the special counsel Robert Mueller has told the president's lawyers that Mueller will accept written answers from President Trump about whether his campaign conspired with Russia and Russian interference in the election. But Mueller will not ask for written answers on possible obstruction of justice with the president. This, according to the New York Times. What's your reaction to this report?
Well, speaking as a former prosecutor, I can say written answers to questions are of very limited value. I would never accept them as a substitute for an interview. They're completely inadequate for that. You don't have the ability to ask follow-up questions. The answers you're getting are really the lawyer's answers as much as their client's answers. If this is part of a bargain to get his interview on other aspects of the investigation and avoid the necessity of litigating it, it may be worth it. But if all you're getting are written answers to questions, I think that is of very little value. And if this is being done in the hope that the president's legal team will later make him accessible for an interview, I wouldn't make a deal on written questions until I had a locked-in commitment on an oral interview, because that's frankly where you get to the truth.
Well, do you think Mueller will be able to interview the president on the issue of obstruction of justice?
I would be very surprised if he's able to do that unless he subpoenas him. And I think if Mueller does subpoena the president and the White House fights it, that the White House loses. And that may be the only way Bob Mueller gets an interview. And I think it's worth pursuing it. And I think that's probably the most sensible course if you need to know what the president's intent was when he took certain actions that look a lot like obstruction of justice.
When you say the White House loses, there would be a legal battle, and potentially it could go all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court, right?
That's exactly right. And of course, that's why the hearings going on in this building are so important, because Kavanaugh has written, apparently had an epiphany after working on the Ken Starr team, that presidents are busy people and shouldn't be subject to investigation. He also obviously takes a very critical view now of an investigation involving an ongoing president. That may color his judgment on a subpoena question. But I think the law is sufficiently clear that nonetheless he would lose, even with this court and even with Kavanaugh on it. But of course, there's no guarantee of that, and that may be why there's a negotiation over, well, we'll accept written answers to some questions, but I hope they're getting the commitment to the oral interview as a part of that bargain. Otherwise, they just need to issue the subpoena and fight it out. I think that's the only way to get to the truth.
Why do you think it's taken this long, 8, 9 months, to get to this point? Maybe written answers to some questions, but maybe leaving open the possibility of an oral interview on others?
Well, I think it's entirely possible that in the beginning, when the Trump legal team was in a cooperative mode, they perhaps believed, the lawyers believed the client and the client's protestations of what he did and what he intended to do and what he knew. But as they learned more, they learned that his explanations were inconsistent with the facts, and there was more jeopardy in putting him before someone in which, lying to the New York Times or to CNN is one thing, as the president has told us. Who cares if he lies to the public, he's basically said. It's not like lying to a magistrate. Well, lying to Mueller is like lying to a magistrate. So they've clearly adopted a different strategy, and I think for several months now, the Trump legal team has decided that time is on their side. If they can delay and delay and delay, and at the same time blame Mueller for the length of the investigation, that's a winning public relations strategy.
Congressman Adam Schiff, thanks so much for joining us.